something that you're big on is zero waste, right? Whether it's in the kitchen or in the garden. And so a lot of stuff, I imagine, is making it through some kind of composting system. And maybe we could start with how many different types of composting you actually do right now.
I messed it up many times. I didn't get the right balance, and I was doing loads of mistakes. But then I met like loads of people here in London that are really knowledgeable about soil microorganisms and how to compost correctly, like Charles Dowding or Michael Kennett, who is a guy like in Brighton, and he's got a really cool business about collecting food waste from all the local shops and transforming them into compost.
Yeah.
Super cool. And yeah, thanks to him, I learned this composting method that is called Bioreactor. That it's one of the main methods which I use in the garden to compost, and it's low cost, super efficient. You just need some mesh, some netting, create a loop, and then use a pallet as a base, and fold some of that netting at the bottom so it doesn't fall through. And then start stacking, nothing overcomplicated, just a ratio 50-50, like green and browns. And stack, keep it moist, or even covered if you can with some tarp. And then you can get this amazing compost that you can use straight in your garden to top up your raised beds. Or you can use it to make compost tea, and we can get into a rabbit hole here, like never ending.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, there's actually a guy on our team, Diego. He is big on the bioreactor. I think the method he uses is called the Johnson-Su bioreactor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that the one that you're doing too?
Yeah, it's a similar process.
With that one, you have to put something in the middle, right?
Yeah.
To keep it aerated, like a perforated pipe or something like that?
Some pipes, or what I do, because I don't have pipes here, and I don't drive in London. So what I do, I went to the local park, I got some big branches, and probably every 3 layers, 4 layers that I make, like into the composting system, I just poke holes like all the way down. So I have this aeration coming through all the times to keep it aerobic.
You just create like gaps in your compost pile manually.
Probably four holes, it's enough to keep it aerated for the size that I have. Obviously, if you got like a bigger system, it would adapt. But it's the same model as the Johnson-Su. The Johnson-Su is just that it uses mainly wood chips. And with this system, the reason why it's called bioreactor is because obviously, like, it's a bit different. You compost, you use it like a normal composting system. And another cool thing that I do is worm farming that I love. Like I do it since many years. I have like a worm farm that I found literally across the road. Like one of the neighbors was chucking it away.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, I'm gonna have it. You know, I cleaned it up and I started like stacking. I ordered some worms and I started stacking the worms with a nice substrate with coconut coir and garden soil as well. And then I feed them from the top. And you can even use the Leate, which is that anaerobic liquid that you get from the bottom. I don't really use it because I tested it and I didn't really see much of a difference on my plants.
Yeah.
But some people claim that it works, so maybe it works,
You know what I heard about the leachate, dude, is that, so we had Steve from the Urban Worm Company on the show, and he's a big worm guy, and he said in a perfect world, which no one is, you wouldn't even have leachate because you would sort of be managing your worm bin in a way where they're not dripping it out.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, you're right, you could like super dilute it and perhaps water it in. I'm sure it's not harmful, but I do agree with you that I don't think it's like the magic cure that everyone sort of says it is.
Exactly.
The compost, the worm castings are, though, for sure. You know, that's what I'm more into.
I would rather make a tea, you know, like mix it with like in a bucket, half with water. Actually, half the bucket with worm casting and then top it up with water. Worms survive in water up to 24 hours, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so they can still thrive if you use it straight away. And then water every single plant. Mix it well and water every single plant. And that
so you'll water in Yeah, you'll water it in that way, including the worms. Some worms
Exactly.
at least. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So you
Without the
won't.
rows on the watering can. Yeah.
Yeah. So you won't separate out. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say you have a 10-gallon worm bin or something like that,
Yeah.
and you've got it's been converted over. The worms have eaten it all. It's mostly castings. Instead of doing like the separation process where you sort of force the worms to the bottom and you get the castings to the top and just take the castings, you'll kind of just scoop both. Under the idea,
Well,
I'm guessing like you're inoculating the beds with worms then, right? Which is good.
yeah. What I try to do, obviously, is not to pick all the worms from the farm,
Sure.
but yeah, it's not like some people like I think they're a bit too picky in terms of like oh, be careful not to pick any worm, and what you find online like in terms of info is like make sure you don't pick any of the worms. There is no harm in adding some
Yeah.
worms, some extra biology to the garden.
And there's no way you would ever be able to miss, every single worm, especially because the worm eggs, right? Like the eggs will get
Cocoons,
in there
yeah.
anyways. Yeah, no matter what. So, okay, so worm castings, worm farm. What are you doing in more like a stand? Like where do the food scraps go? I know you probably don't have as many as most people, but where do they go if they do make it outside?
I still got some, don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, another method is bokashi that I do indoor,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't use it that much. But what I tend to do is a combination of the bokashi plus composting. So, like, I start by fermenting my food scraps indoor, and once it's all done, then I transfer this bokashi to the garden. I use EM1 inoculated bran, and I create like the classic standard, like I have my own system that I made with 2 buckets. You layer food scraps and then this bran, and then you can, after like it's fully fermented, you can add it to like either a hole in the garden or in your compost. And yeah, and by doing that, I think the compost turns out much better. It turns out the structure of the compost, the water retention, like loads of things are
Yeah.
like way better than like standard compost. Yeah, that's another method that I apply.
Have you ever just buried stuff in the garden straight up?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did a test not long ago, actually, that at the allotment, I buried a batch of bokashi, and then I planted 2 tomato plants that were randomly popping around the garden because I had in the compost the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And I transplanted them on top. And they recommend to wait like 3 to 4 weeks before, like, obviously the acidity of the bokashi is like lowering down, and then you can plant over it. But yeah, they're thriving. Like tomatoes, probably because they are big feeders, but they're like just thriving. So yeah, probably
Yeah.
I would do it when building raised beds next time. I think it's a good way. Layering the logs and twigs, spoiled
Yeah.
hay, and maybe some of the bokashi.
Watch the full episode right here and subscribe for more new episodes every single week.